just lock ourselves in so that nobody will come in. But if a fire starts, then we'll have to run. And we still have another minute or so, but I think we'll, entertain you in the meantime. Here, I can show you on the webcam the beautiful sunny day out the window. The sun is shining. Maybe what we can do with a few of the people here would be that we can check on the sound. So I have the microphone turned up all of the way. It should be functioning and you should be able to hear us. I hope everyone can see the images okay. And if you have any questions, the chat, we should be able to use the chat for questions. Oh, very nice. We can use the chat for questions. Hello, London. But maybe because we have the opportunity to have two people, what we'll do is, I don't know if while I am speaking that you could see if anybody writes anything, and then you can kind of tell me that. And then definitely we would like to be able to answer some questions towards the end. So if you want to save any of your questions to the end, but if something happens and you really need a question to be able to understand where we're going, then feel free to answer it in the middle if it's not too complicated, especially if there's something with clarification with the pronunciation or something like this. The words that I'm speaking have been written down. And so what we can do later is make the text and the images available to everyone. So that if you miss something now and you think, oh, what did she say? Then we can make it available for you to look more closely at. Okay? Okay, then I think that we should go ahead and start. I need to make sure that this is being recorded. So please, the VLE project administrator, can you please either start recording or tell me to record? Okay, great. Then we're ready to go. Hello from Austria. Hello from the Danube University of Krems, which is just right outside of Vienna, upriver a little bit on the Danube. Hello from the Danube University's Department for Image Science. We're going to be my colleague and me, Viola Ruhse. I'm Wendy Coones, and we're going to be taking you step by step through an image science methodology. And because we are talking about visual literacy and video literacy, then hopefully you'll be able to find something that then works for your own teaching, for the teacher of teachers, for the teachers of pupils, the teachers of students, and maybe even just for yourself as well. As you can see, we're starting very big based on the first picture that we have here. So the title of the presentation is Image Science and Images of Science, an Exemplary Analysis of the Photograph Blue Marble, which was taken in 1972. At today's e-learning event, the field of image science will be outlined. And then, by way of example, we will also analyze an image from the field of science, namely the well-known photograph Blue Marble from 1972. First, its special role in space photography of the Earth is discussed, and selected aspects of the complex genesis and reception history will also be examined. Images are now ubiquitous in advertising, science, technology, and society. They shape professional life and leisure time equally. High-resolution computer graphics can be found not only in game consoles, but also in screens in university clinics for medical simulations. State-of-the-art mapping technology, long only available to experts, is changing the way the world looks at virtual globe projects like Google Earth. Images from surveillance cameras act as disciplinary measures or as instruments of domination and power. Mobile devices greatly facilitate the private production of photos and movies uploaded to Instagram, YouTube, Sino, Webio, VK, Flickr, and other popular social media services. Everyday practices in modern media companies thus concentrate on visual exchange. New forms of perception and reception and the emerging industries that sell visibility are beginning to manifest themselves. Images also play an increasing role in the generation and communication of knowledge. Therefore, visual skills are increasingly needed in culture, society, and science. The German speakers among you will be able to understand some of the words on here better. However, the topics and issues that have so far received little attention in art history or visual studies must also be considered. In particular, technically reproduced images from a variety of applications, such as science, business, advertising, architecture, they need to be examined from a variety of perspectives. There is a de-hierarchization of the subject area and the previously much narrower concept of the image being extended. Our new flood of images demands not only that the images themselves in their inherent logic are treated, but also their production, the reception, the media, and the techniques used, as well as the social factors and the historical character. For this purpose, valuable methods of classical art history are extended through interdisciplinary means. Of course, there are also different terminologies of images used by the various fields, like philosophy, communication, science, or art history. One of the things that was seminal for James Watson and Francis Crick's determination of the correct DNA double helix structure model was, in fact, X-ray images of DNA crystals by the biochemist Rosalind Franklin. You can see her recording of the bee DNA and a schema created from it. Due to the overuse and saturation of these particular image records, such images are now worn out and distanced from their origin and also from their unaltered state. We very rarely see the images, the original images of the DNA. We usually see the visualizations of what the scientists understand DNA to, how it functions. Naturally, these scientific images also require adequate analysis. And for that purpose, the field of image science is ideally suited in looking through an interdisciplinary methodology. In addition to images from medicine, space photography of the Earth is an important research object in the field of image science. One of the most intensively studied images is the blue marble photograph. The color image of the Earth was taken in 1972 during the Apollo 17 lunar flight, when it was 45,000 kilometers away from the Earth. For a long time previous to that, there were no photographically reproduced images or paintings of the physical reality on Earth, only artificial artifacts that were based on a conglomerate of information that was already available. Models and representations were created imaginarily as a globe or maps. Extraterrestrial satellite photos, space photos, and rocket images in the second half of the 20th century provided new visual material on the Earth and enriched our understanding of how the Earth looked from outside of being on its surface. The photo blue marble has a special meaning within these pictures. It shows for the first time the clear picture of a fully illuminated planet. The continental structures of Africa and Antarctica are clearly recognizable, which would have been very difficult to see in person anyway. Before this image, no satellite or astronaut, I forgot how to say the word astronaut for a moment, because no satellite or astronaut had succeeded in capturing the South Pole before. Some of the image records of the Earth showed nocturnal shadow zones, or they were not completely in focus, or they were overexposed. So actually, the blue marble is, from a photographic perspective, a very well-taken image, that it doesn't have dark spots. It has the whole Earth in it. It was a particularly uncloudy day, so you actually see quite a bit of the structure as well. Okay, although in 1968 the AST-3 satellite made a qualitatively fairly good color image of the Earth, the continental structures were obscured. By contrast, almost the entire coastline of Africa is clearly visible on the blue marble recording. The color scheme of the satellite image is also very dark. The result from the color scanner-like technology of the satellite, and the oceans are almost black. Blue marble, on the other hand, was photographed on film, on regular photography film, allowing a very realistic view of the Earth. The color is also very bright, and brighter than the satellite images that had been taken in the 60s and in the early 70s. In blue marble, for example, the intense sea of the blues and the swirling white of the clouds is dominant, and they stand out very well against the black frame of the universe surrounding it. Here you can see as well another satellite image that is a little bit darker and as well a little bit out of focus and has some of the shadowing, so it's not actually round. This also led to the name-giving comparison of the image record to be a blue marble. Such a comparison is, of course, the positively and emotionally connotated connection to childhood game of marbles, representing the treasures that are carefully safeguarded. Symbolically, it also echoed in this idealized, polished sphere. The image blue marble was considered to be particularly beautiful, which promoted its popularity as well. It was often referred to as the Mona Lisa of scientific images. The image blue marble is not only characterized by its quality and beauty, it was made by a human rather than being made by a satellite. This analog photograph was not composed of various other detailed images pasted together. There were already multiple images made by satellites that were not far enough away from the Earth to capture a real sphere image. As a result, the blue marble was perceived to have a certain degree of authenticity. The hype around the image was also due to the fact that it was taken on the Apollo 17 spaceflight, the last of the Apollo program. So this was then taken by a group of astronauts that were the last to reach the moon and return home again. And thus it attracted a lot of media attention as well. By contrast, the satellite images that we saw earlier received not as much attention. NASA providing the worldwide media with the blue marble image shortly after the end of the Apollo 17 spaceflight on the 23rd of December in 1972 meant that it was published immediately the next day on the 24th of December in 1972 in many newspapers worldwide. It's still amazing to me to think that this was then the end of the space program, that they finally took a picture of the Earth from far away from it. This large media coverage was conducive to the rapid popularity of blue marble and the fundamental for the future intensive reception within the environmental movement and other areas. Blue marble is also the most requested photo from the NASA archives today, and is even supposed to be the most frequently reproduced image of all time. It is the best known photograph of the Earth to this day, and considered to be one of the most popular images in the history of the image thematized in museum exhibitions. Blue marble has therefore been referred to as an icon of the 20th century. One of the things that we also here at the Department for Image Science do is look at icons that come from the history of art history and the history of religious icons, but also look at them in the context today of how we create a new brand of icons that are about the new religion in a way. So it's a contemporary iconography, so to say. The genesis of blue marble is a little bit more complex. Serendipity, or a lucky consequence, also played a role, since technically the Apollo program was designed for moon exploration. Cameras were taken on the missions to be used for documenting evidence during flight. Thus, during the program, some very impressive pictures of the Earth arrived without knowing that they were going to be also bringing this back. The astronaut Bill Anders pointed this out in retrospect of the Apollo 8 mission, saying that we went all the way to the moon in order to be able to discover the Earth. And if you can imagine that this was much earlier than the people who actually took this final picture that we see here. On the last outward flight from the moon on December 7th to 1972, about 5 hours after takeoff at a distance of 45,000 kilometers from Earth, several shots of the Earth were taken through the spaceship window. From this, NASA chose the second for publication, as it was particularly sharp. It was in focus. Luckily, the window wasn't dirty, since dirty windows are always annoying for people taking pictures out of spacecraft and also out of planes. This is one of the things that you have to, aerial photographers have to watch out for. This commercial camera was available and adapted by the manufacturer specifically for spaceflight. It's a 70 millimeter Hasselblad medium format camera with a Zeiss 80 millimeter lens. And today you can find the original camera at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. And I'm sure that there have been many other cameras after this that have been developed for space, taking space photographs. On board of Apollo 17 were the three astronauts, Crennan, Evans, and Harrison. All three were cited by NASA as the image creators or the copyright authors. So far, it's not been actually possible to prove who exactly, which of the astronauts actually took the picture. And none of the astronauts have come forward and said, I took it. They all say, yes, we took it. But Apollo 7 has a special case that the flight is precisely documented with sound recordings. And so we're going to take a listen to some of the sound recordings, because it's really fascinating to hear what they were saying when they were taking these pictures. It was just accidental. They happened to have the camera there, and they looked out the window, and there was this perfect picture of the Earth off in the distance. And so they said, let's take some photographs. And so I'm going to play one of these here.
I'm distinguishing the back guy from clouds mainly by oh, goody. Yeah, there. I guess you have full page, Mom. Did you get any pictures of that, Jeff? Oh, yeah, we got some pictures earlier. I'm going to get another one here in a minute. I'll tell you, if there ever was a fragile appearing piece of blue in space, it's the Earth right now. Right.
So those are the astronauts talking to one another, and of course the entire thing is all recorded, saying to one another, "Oh, did you get the shot?" And "Oh, look at that!" And "Look how fragile it is." And so these three astronauts took the image. One of the things that is also interesting to know, it's not clear which of the astronaut has the camera, but it is thought that Harrison Schmitt had a particular interest in the view of Earth from space for meteorological aspects. This could have been the occasion to take several shots of the Earth. Even if it wasn't him pressing the trigger himself, it may have been that he was interested in having these shots. He was also a geologist, and actually the last trip to the moon was the first time that they sent a geologist there, and so it was looking at things through different eyes during that mission, definitely. And this is where we got this image from as well. It becomes clear from the other earlier mentioned images from space that it is not very easy to just take a good single image of the entire Earth without night shadows and having it be in focus and not having too many clouds. For this, the sun must be straight behind the camera and the angle must also be right. This was possible because of the special trajectory of this Apollo 17 mission, because of the fact that they were going to a very specific place on the moon that they needed to go in a particular trajectory. It was the optimal start time, and as I mentioned, it was also the first time that a geologist or scientist, and not just a fighter pilot, was going on the mission. And so he knew what to look for, and he knew what kind of specimens that he wanted to collect as well. The photos of the Earth taken in 1972 were not planned. And fortunately, the astronauts were available, alert, and interested in the sight of the Earth. And if you can imagine, the images that they took of the Earth here, they were taking while floating in space, trying to focus on this thing out the window. And they did really quite well, I would say. But if we look at this image that was chosen from the series for Blue Marble has also been edited. In popular reporting, this often goes unremarked. Since none of the shots of the series is in focus on the Earth as the Blue Marble, the expanse of space dominates the images. For Blue Marble, you move the Earth to the center, very close. You move it to the center, very close to the edge of the picture. The Earth seems to be magnified and dominates the picture surface. Thus, the beauty of the planet comes into focus. This image structure is simple, but also extremely effective. The square edging also emphasizes the spherical shape of the Earth, which was already hypothesized by Pythagoras. As a geometrical archetype, the sphere has a very special effect on us in our perception. And with this emphasis, the blue marble of the Earth is given a certain metaphysical kind of character. In addition, the gray coarseness of the original photo has been replaced by a deep black. The globe not only stands out more clearly from the background, but also highlights its splendor and its beauty. The planet looks like a glass marble on black velvet, which supports the term blue marble. The symbolic color connotation of the deep black as negative and dangerous will also be discussed a little bit more in detail. And note that the image, the original image, there's no upside down in space, but in the contact sheet image, you can see that they were what we might call upside down, and so the blue marble, the typical blue marble image, then they turned it so that it would be right side up, so that then Antarctica is on the bottom rather than on the top. It was rotated 180 degrees to avoid irritating the viewer. The subject then becomes immediately recognizable as the Earth, even as it appears innovatively in the analog photograph with a realistic view. For contemporaries at the time, in the late 60s, early 70s, the unity of the Earth was particularly well expressed in blue marble, which suited the narratives of one world and a world community, which at the time were very present in one section of American society. Contrary to contemporary conflicts, the global perspective should make clear that there would be no isolated problems or solutions to problems. Therefore, blue marble and similar images of the Earth taken by the satellite images from 1967 were selected as the cover image for the whole Earth catalog. Counterculture community techniques have been published in this handbook since 1968 and is considered a manifesto of counterculture. The publisher of the Whole Earth Catalog, Stuart Brand, initiated in 1965 already with the campaign, "Why haven't we seen a photograph of the whole Earth yet?" Among other things, Stuart Brand distributed and sold buttons with the question phrase that gave his campaign a title. Brand wanted to use this action to ask NASA to provide an extraterrestrial picture of the planet Earth, because he knew that they were already going away, but at that point, NASA wasn't making all of its images available to the public. According to Brand, people should thus be inspired to behave more consciously towards the Earth if they could see it as a whole image. Blue marble was found more frequently in the next years in connotation with the growing environmental movement as well as World Hunger Organizations. Due to the prominent position of Africa and the Antarctica in the picture, blue marble was particularly well suited for use in the context of world hunger and environmental protection. The deep black universe also has a particularly hostile and negative effect on the Earth dominated by blue and white. The planet seems much more vulnerable. Even if a viewer has no deep ecological knowledge, blue marble intuitively communicates that the Earth system is fragile and must be protected. The image was coupled with slogans like "Love your other," "Save the Earth," "Save the world," "Save the planet." It was placed on posters, flags, and t-shirts. The blue marble should awaken a love of Mother Earth. To date, the image is used in numerous global ecological contexts. Here, David Guggenheim used it as the backdrop with Al Gore during the sequel to the 2006 Oscar-winning documentary An Inconvenient Truth. There are also numerous other images that have been created you can only imagine. These images have been created since. One is the Earth rise, which is also like the blue marble coming at the same time, this idea of being away from home and wanting to protect something. This is then, you can see in the upper left-hand corner. The upper right-hand corner is an image of the Earth at night. This is actually a visually reconstructed image. This isn't an original photograph, but shows what the Earth would look like in the dark with all of the lights on. The one in the lower left is showing a distorted view, because the junk is actually not that big, of all of the space junk, all of the satellites and broken rocket ships and things like this that are outside of the Earth, making it look a little bit like a dust bin. And then the other is the bottom right is then an image from even further away, from where you can see the moon with the Earth in the background of it. So there's the blue marble started a craze in making images of many different kinds for being able to see how we and how the Earth looks from far away. These kind of portraiture, so to say. Blue marble was also possibly adopted for an additional reason: to express a global will to control. Traditionally, a view from above is connotated with power and with control. The traditional bird's eye view is, of course, multiplied many times over in the extraterrestrial viewpoint of blue marble. But the Earth view also fitted into the 80s and 90s to the call for a new kind of geology. It was hoped that satellite imagery would capture all of planetary motion. And here we have, would capture all of planetary motion. In connection with Apollo 17, the astronaut Harrison Schmitt wanted to determine whether or not the view from a distance would be suitable for predicting meteorological phenomena. The outward view of the Earth in blue marble was also put into the service of the fantasy of a controlled global processes, ideally to steer and to be able to determine long-term evolution. The Earth is perceived as an available resource where such neoliberal and calculating management perspectives are thinking about how to be able to cover and control it. But as we can see with the blue marble here, when you start to zoom in, all you see is just unfocused fuzz. But today we have much better technology that is available. I'm trying to find out where. The ethnologist Anna Tsing has compared the globe in this context to the ball of a fortune teller. So I'm going to go back here. The ball of a fortune teller who promises full access to the globe. And so this image also set off not just the ecological movement, but also a movement to where knowledge is power. And now this is then images from satellite images where it's possible in real time to look at illegal mining in Peru, or to watch over a city, or to watch over forest fires. And so it's really quite astonishing what is available to be able to be seen now. Contemporary telecommunication also brings hope of a global connectivity, whether that be good or bad. In this context, the follow-up image of NASA's blue marble from 2002 also served as a screensaver for Apple iPhones up until 2010. and 12. There have been continuing blue marbles. So although NASA provided more blue marbles based on satellite images in the following decades, the first blue marble continues to be the most well-known and also the most influential. Since Apollo 17 was the last manned moon expedition to date, after 1972, no human has personally taken an extraterrestrial perspective of the Earth like that which was captured in blue marble. Nevertheless, blue marble acts as a picture of the world par excellence and is also influenced with its realistic style the later blue marbles of NASA, even if the world has changed in the meantime. For example, on January of 2002, NASA released new footage of the Earth. The known example image was created digitally from six satellite images. So far, it has been viewed for over 6 million times on Flickr. The cloud formations are less conspicuous, and significantly, of course, is that the U.S. is shown and not Africa, which has also been criticized. Sometimes blue marble is something that we use to describe ourselves and also to describe our hopes and our dreams and our fears. And here are a couple of images as well that are in the same blue marble strain. These are all visualizations, a visualization of the flat Earth, a visualization of the Earth being bombarded by an asteroid, a visualization of the Earth being overrun with water. The one on the lower left is what it would look like without ice caps and with a lot more water. And then the one on the upper right is with clouds that are technically impossible for the Earth, but it makes an interesting looking picture. This is one of the things that's interesting in talking with students about is the difference between this picture, the one on the right, being a real photograph, a real analog photograph that somebody took one frame with one picture, the difference between that image and one of these images. Because on the surface, if you don't know how the images are made, then you're going to think that they might all be a little bit the same, or that they are, the degree of manipulation might be a little bit underestimated by most people, and especially by kids today. Sometimes the blue marble also inspires dystopian imagery as well. Hopefully the Earth is not going to look like this in the next 38 years, but if the blue marble has done its job in helping us to understand what the Earth is and where we are, then hopefully we can avoid this. We also hope that the image analysis example of a complete Earth photo will inspire you to look at other images also of the Earth. This detailed look into one single image and its further ramifications and histories can be used as a method with your students and to implement image science analysis methods to be able to better understand the nature of images and what happens when we are surrounded by them. And we thank you for your attention. And we are available for questions if anybody has any questions now. And I was the one reading this, and Viola is the one who was writing most of this. And so this is definitely, we were working together. And I see that, Wonder said thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, I see somebody else writing. I think that there's also the possibility that you can pose a question by speaking, but I'm not sure how to do that. Do you have specific teaching ideas? Julie Auckland. Can you tell me what it is that you teach? And we might be able to turn this into what it is. So definitely, so what we teach is image science, and we're teaching photographies. EFL. What is EFL? English as a foreign language. Yes. How would you use these images as in English as a foreign language or as a foreign language? I think we do German as a foreign language here. Es macht Spaß.
So it is a very good window into the 1970s and also into the late 1960s. So, and you have all this Apollo resources, and you can use also this so this platform is, I think it is very good for learning English as a foreign language, because they have transcribed all
of the recordings. So all of the recordings, you can listen to them, but you can also, they have subtitles.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. I'm trying to think what else might be. Definitely being able to write, if they need to be able to write, if they need to be able to look up new words, look at historical phenomena. But to a certain extent, I think that what we do more is making sure that people have a critical view when they are looking at images and when they're looking at videos and things, so that they don't take everything as truth, and also so that then they begin to implement their own analysis. Yes, yeah. I think someone just wrote that introduce environmental vocabulary. I mean, definitely, and I think that this is describe. Okay. I think that one of the things that this is just one example, and whatever it is that would be good for students to be able to learn about, if you find that one iconic image and you start digging just a little bit, then you find everything that's under the surface. You find historical viewpoints, you find technical viewpoints, and so if anything, this example might be good in the fact that there's a little bit of a story in here for any student. And so, do you know the phenomena sometimes when you give an assignment and half of the class is interested in it and another half thinks it's really boring and stupid, and it's hard to get them motivated? And the good thing about finding an image that's a really iconic image is that most of the time there's so many different elements to it that there's going to be a personal connection to each one of the students in a way, that because it's just going to be much, much more complex. And so part of what we do is we look at these complex images and we take them all apart into their individual pieces. Whereas if the other good thing about complex images is that it gives students a lot of different entry points, that they can start with where they're at. So the one student might say, oh, I love that dystopian garbage picture. And then the next student says, oh, that camera, my grandpa had one like that. Is there anything else that you can? Learning technology session group describing. Oh, so Jane Auckland is working with describing images and other activities. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to read this out loud. I think everybody can read it anyway. You exposed planet Earth in this case. Do you think that getting images of other planets and galaxies had or will have the same impact nowadays? Especially for young people, that they don't see this as anything new or impressive. Many films have incredible renders of Earth and other planets. Yes. And this is actually one of the things that that I personally in my research have highly criticized, is that very often our perceptions and our understandings of what some of these other places are have been romanticized by science fiction and also romanticized by the scientists. And romanticized also meaning that you can make movies out of it and things. Even when the guy dies in the end, it still is a romanticized image of that. And I think that that's happening with Mars right now. And the question is how to get people and students that are going to appreciate the real image rather than the fantasy image. And I'm not sure, I don't think that they're going to do that willingly. I think that they're always going to prefer the romanticized, cool, heavily CGI'd image. One of the other things that we also do here is looking at how people perceive the manipulation of images, whether or not they like that, whether they don't like that, whether they can notice it, whether they can't notice it. And what we found again and again, unfortunately, is that even when people know that an image has been manipulated, they like it all that much better. And so being able to teach them that it's been manipulated. I'm going to move back to one of these other images. So these images are real images. These are satellite images. And these are all CGI. These are all artistically created images.
And the Blue Marble photo gets now also much media attention. So there are still many newspaper articles about it and the discussion on it. So it is interesting for people.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things too, bringing in a little bit of history, I think that this is when you talk with students about this image being taken in 1972 and have them calculate who within their family was alive in 1972 and how old were they at the time, getting an idea of the fact that the first time that we ever had these kinds of images that now seem to be everywhere is really fairly recent. And what did we have before that? And so the nice thing is that students can actually do some research now to look for what is or is not available at what times. Yes, I agree with you. Also, Viola is working with photography, and the photo manipulation is very tricky. Even photographers have trouble sometimes recognizing photo manipulation.
And these manipulation techniques are not only there since 20 years, so also they were manipulating photographs in the early 20th century and also even in the 19th century. So all digital manipulation technologies have forerunners, have predecessors in analog photography.
And also, I think, in painting. But painting, they just called it artistic license. Okay. I would suggest, unless there's a burning question that you would like for us to answer right now, is that we can move the discussion over to the forum, and we'll be available that if anybody has any written questions, then we can answer them again in writing. Okay, we're going to give one last minute to see if there's a burning question. I like the chat box. It works. It works well. Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. And we also will make this available on the Moodle instance so that then if there's something that you didn't catch, then you can read it or take a look at it. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.